This video is brought to you by Keeps. What up, Wisecrack? Greg here. Have you been hustling lately? It seems like everybody is, whether you're busting your balls at the 9 to 5, or adding an Uber shift at night, or selling your knitted frogs on Etsy. The hustle is real. The culture surrounding hustling means that rest is our last priority. Hustle culture encourages us to spend our free time pursuing money and economic stability by any means necessary. It's the embodiment of the classic philosophy of pulling oneself up by the bootstraps to make ends meet, especially in today's tough economic climate. But ironically, the term bootstrapping, coined in the 1800s, was initially intended to reference something being literally impossible. Impossible like pulling yourself over a fence by the straps of your boots, or crossing a river by the straps of your boots, or flying to the moon by the straps of your boots. Yet, today, the phrase basically means you can overcome all barriers to success through sheer determination and hard work. The bootstraps narrative tells us that no matter what, if we work hard enough, we will eventually be successful. Just like those self-made millionaires who struck gold with just a small $1 million loan from their parents. And hustle culture success stories are endlessly parroted by the mass media. Often these success stories come from celebrities using existing social media clout to say push diet teas, perfumes, or even stoner pottery. And while it may have worked for Rihanna, most of us are in a more hopeless place. So today, we're gonna ask, is hustle culture a positive motivational force, or is it just a buzzword used to make us feel bad for using our free time to relax?
Starting now, you are a hard, heartless career gal. Go to work, be awesome at it, and don't waste time on foolish flights of fancy. From now on, you are a robot. Beep, bop, boop, blurp, bleep.
Let's find out in this Wisecrack Edition on hustle culture. Is it bad for us? But before we get into it, I want to tell you about this week's sponsor, Keeps. Keeps makes it easier and more affordable for guys to prevent hair loss. And since 2 out of 3 men will experience male pattern baldness in some form by the time they're 35, Keeps is relevant to a lot of people out there. But with their subscription service, you can fight back against hair loss and hang on to the locks you've got. The Keeps process begins with a free consultation with a licensed Keeps doctor who can help decide which combination of FDA-approved prescriptions and over-the-counter medications are right for you. These hair loss prevention medications will arrive at your doorstep every 3 months, so you won't have to set a pesky reminder to pick up refills. As your treatment plan goes on, you can message your Keeps doctor 24/7 to update them on your progress and to ask any questions you may have. But here's one question we can answer right off the bat. While individual results may vary, it typically takes between 4 and 6 months to start seeing results. If you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/wisecrack or click the link in the description to receive 50% off your first order. That's keeps.com/wisecrack. Now back to the show. While treated like a contemporary phenomenon, hustle culture actually has roots in the late 1800s. At the time, many folks suffered from burnout. That's in part because many of them were working much longer hours due to the advent of electricity and the pressures of the Industrial Revolution. Some of these folks were even diagnosed with a medical condition then known as neurasthenia. Its symptoms were depression, insomnia, fatigue, and other mental and physical ailments, which we now associate with millennial and Gen Z burnout. But here's the thing, getting a neurasthenia diagnosis wasn't strictly negative. It meant you were faithfully conforming to the idealized Protestant work ethic of the time. These symptoms were considered a natural part of having an active mind and being a good, hard-working American. In fact, an alternative name was Americanitis. Naturally, miracle cures like Rexall's Americanitis elixir were marketed to the anxious patients. Those suffering from Americanitis were given treatment recommendations like self-care. It's like how we're told that a few minutes of meditation each morning will cure our own modern Americanitis. Still, there was one big caveat. This disease wasn't for everyone. The man who coined the term, George Beard believed that black and indigenous people could not suffer from neurasthenia because they didn't overuse their minds. He thought the same about working class Americans in general. The diagnosis was basically exclusive to white, middle-class Americans who were supposedly overusing their brain power to pursue the American dream, which was all well and good, but maybe a little elixir could take the edge off, right? In contrast, for marginalized groups, working to the point of exhaustion wasn't seen as a treatable condition. It was an expectation, the only way of achieving social and economic mobility. This is how the concept of the hustle emerged in black communities. The hustle wasn't an option, it was a requirement. If black folks weren't hustling, they were even stereotyped as straight up lazy. There were tons of pressure to be the model minority, miraculously succeeding in a system rigged against you. Keeping up with the hustle was and has remained a matter of literal survival for black Americans. It's only recently that the term hustle culture has been commonly appropriated by white people. But the timing of this particular appropriation over recent years is interesting. That's because it coincides with diminishing economic conditions across the board for middle and working class people at large. Today, society applies the same shaming rhetoric to practically everybody, though especially people of color. If you're cobbling together a 70-hour work week and still not getting by, well, the system isn't the problem, man. You're the problem. Whether it's called Americanitis or the hustle, working your butt off has long been intrinsic to the American dream. Now, that used to mean working for the same company your whole life, rising through the ranks, and buying a home. And of course, earning a retirement filled with comfort and Caribbean cruises. But in recent decades, as jobs become less secure, that old school American dream was slowly replaced by the ubiquitous ethos of hustle culture. Nowadays, we're told the way to achieve true happiness and economic freedom isn't from working hard at one job your entire life and climbing the corporate ladder. It's from balancing multiple jobs, cultivating a unique side hustle, and maybe striking gold on a late-night Dogecoin trade. But why is this all happening in the first place? That is to say, when did hustle culture become so deeply entrenched in our society that people are getting up at 3 a.m. to drive for Uber before a full day of work? A lot of it seems to be the result of one major shift: the erosion of labor unions, which provide a means for the working class to build collective power. Since a bunch of shoemakers first unionized in 1794, American unions have been a way for working class folks to fight back against unfair working conditions. During the Second Industrial Revolution, they achieved things like higher pay, safer conditions, and shorter work days. Back then, unions fought especially hard for a 40-hour work week. Yet, today, high-profile business people like Elon Musk tweet things like, "Nobody has ever changed the world on 40 hours a week." And Silicon Valley employees wear t-shirts declaring 9 to 5 is for the weak. Damn. So what's changed? Union membership has declined, and dramatically. In post-war America, 35% of the workforce were in a union. In 1983, that fell to 20%, and by 2020 to 11%. Some of this is because sectors which had high union density have declined, says Cornell professor Kate Bronfenbrenner. Simultaneously, a high number of jobs have been created in newer sectors, like tech, where unions haven't existed before. Union suppression is also rife with companies from Amazon to Tesla to Starbucks actively discouraging their workers from joining unions. Tech companies in Silicon Valley even introduced measures like casual dress, Margarita Fridays, and free food to try to reduce union membership amongst its workers. But it doesn't stop at petty attempts to please. Elon Musk illegally coerced employees into not joining unions when he tweeted, "Why pay union dues and give up stock options for nothing?" So what does this decline in union membership say about hustle culture? Well, with fewer people collectivizing to demand a living wage and better hours, we have less control over our income. Indeed, it's no wonder that the stagnation of wages overlaps with the stagnation of unions. Instead of focusing on the collective, we're going at it alone to try and outpace our colleagues and climb the ladder. If working conditions are intolerable, it's not on our bosses for denying us bathroom breaks. The responsibility is on us to manage our own stress. But it's not just the demise of unions that has played a role in promoting hustle culture. It's also the way overworking has been repackaged as proof of worth. Hustle culture has a way of changing the narrative from your boss is a dick for making you work weekends. 2, you're doing a great job if you're working weekends. And if you're not, maybe you're just not working hard enough. Under the prevailing hustle culture narrative, when we rise up the ladder due to working overtime or multiple jobs, it's not exploitation, it's a success story. That's even if the odds are stacked against you. If women are having a hard time succeeding in the workplace, they can now girl boss their way out of it.
If Angelica's ever going to make it in a male-dominated power structure, she's got to eat, breathe, drink, and sweat self-esteem.
When Yahoo CEO Maher boasted of her 130-hour work weeks, she wasn't being overworked by an understaffed company. She was girl bossing. The problem is, the narrative of the girl boss takes our attention away from systemic issues, specifically the numerous barriers that women, and especially women of color, already face in the workplace. You know, lower wages, discriminatory hiring and promotion policies, inadequate maternity leave, and so on. Instead, our culture focuses on success stories of Maher spending 18 hours a day at her desk, and then we wonder why we aren't doing that too. Hustling also presents a way for people pushed out of the traditional job market to get by. Being your own boss is presented as a way to navigate systemic racism and other barriers to success. And both the gig economy and side hustling have grown with digital platforms. Doing casual freelance work in your free time is easier than ever via apps like Uber, Lyft, Fiverr, TaskRabbit, and so on. In this way, recent tech has ironically helped us move away from the utopian dream that the technology industry preached in its early days. See, the prevailing notion used to be that innovative technology would increase productivity so much that we wouldn't have to work 9-to-5 jobs anymore. Hypothetically, we'd all have a lot more free time. Now, innovative tech just seems to find more ways to fill our free time with more work. This is made all the more depressing by the reality it's really hard to gain a significant income from side hustles. A survey from Bankrate found that the average monthly earnings from a side hustle were $686 a month. Notably though, 49% of respondents were making less than $200 a month. The dream of eventually earning your way out of your day job then rarely becomes a reality for most folks. But that doesn't fully explain why hustle culture has become so dominant in recent years. One of the things that makes hustle culture so appealing is the notion that by working really hard, accumulating major achievements, and earning lots of money, we will eventually become happy. Of course, you can't experience the joys of high achievement and megabucks unless you're being productive, which is why hustle culture depends on the idea of productivity being tied to self-worth. Constantly working is seen as a positive, rather than as a sign you're not being paid enough.
Work's going okay, I would say. Yeah. Working hard.
One of the symptoms of an approaching nervous breakdown is the belief that one's work is ever so important. That's Bertrand Russell.
Huh. Yes, indeed. Yes. Yes to that.
This leads to toxic productivity. That's where your self-worth is so tied to your productivity that unless you're doing something which benefits you financially, you're wasting your time. When we're valued by how much we can achieve, and especially by how much we earn, the consequences can be devastating. If we're not making a profit, we're not just economically worthless, we're literally worthless. It's no wonder then that job-related busyness has become a status symbol. In one experiment, participants were presented with a hypothetical man, one who either worked long hours and was really busy, or one who didn't work and enjoyed leisure time. As you might guess, the busy man was considered more high status. But what are the consequences of this pressure to never stop working? We've all heard the uplifting / low-key dystopian stories of hustle culture in action. The Lyft driver who kept working while in labor, the girl who sells lemonade to fund her brain surgery, and so on. There's no set answer as to how often hustle culture actually works. A lot of it, as we see from celebrities and extremely wealthy, has to do with having existing capital to invest into new projects, or existing fame to leverage your side hustle off of. That's not to mention being able to afford nannies, chefs, cleaners, and assistants to do the tasks that normal people have to juggle alongside their multiple jobs. The mythos of the hustle is far less realistic if you're not already rich. So what about the rest of us? Well, The stress of hustling may be reducing our lifespan, increasing our risk of dying from a stroke or heart disease, and other scary stats that you can Google in the dead of night. And ironically, studies show that working these long hours and multitasking is also reducing our all-important productivity. So, we're sacrificing our health, well-being, and free time all in the name of mythical hustle that, at the end of the day, probably won't salvage our bank accounts anyway. So is hustle culture here to stay? The coronavirus pandemic was an interesting wild card. Obviously, it left a lot of us working from our bedrooms, living rooms, and apparently even bathrooms. This certainly had its positives, like greater accessibility for people with disabilities and more flexibility for all of us. But we were also expected to be even more productive, without water cooler talk to distract us. So, it's no surprise that one survey found that 68% of remote workers worked weekends, and 45% regularly did more than 8 hours of work a day. In the UK, remote workers have done $33 billion worth of unpaid overtime. But it's not just how hard you work at your actual job. Hobbies became commodified into side hustles, especially in industries like entertainment and journalism. People tried desperately to supplement lost income from being unable to work or losing their jobs. So in some ways, the pandemic arguably exacerbated hustle culture. But on the flip side, there's a growing movement against the notion that we have to spend our free time doing profit-oriented work. Hustle culture likes to tell us that the only reason we exist is to make money and achieve success. But people are pushing back against the idea, arguing that profit-minded work is not our only purpose on this planet. Activists have been promoting rest as a form of resistance, asking questions like, how will you be useless to capitalism today? Books like Laziness Does Not Exist remind us that toxic productivity isn't good for us, and that laziness might just be a societal concept invented to make us feel bad for enjoying our downtime. Whether this movement will have an effect on hustle culture at large remains to be seen. But what do you think, Wisecrack? Is hustle culture a way of motivating people to live their best life, selling knitted frogs on Etsy? Or is it a con designed to make us feel bad for spending our free time watching Netflix and enjoying junk food? Let us know in the comments. Big thanks to our patrons for all your support. Check out our side hustle by listening to our podcast. Hit that subscribe button like you're clocking in for a 12-hour day. And don't forget to ring that bell. And as always, thanks for watching. Later. Rexall's American Itis Elixir were marketed to those ancient patients,